Hi, folks. Welcome back to this podcast, Inside the Songs. And today I am super excited to be joined by the incredibly talented Natalie Shay. Natalie,
Hello.
thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm great. It feels like a little while since I've spoken to you. Well, it has been a little while since I've spoken to you.
How long has it been?
How old are you now?
25.
Yeah. So it's probably we've been in touch, but it's probably been 7 years.
Amazing.
7 years. So why don't you tell people how it is that I know you personally before we dive into some interesting stuff?
Because you taught me at school.
That's right. That's right. So you attended the BRIT School for 4 years between the age of 14 and 18. And I was teaching there at the time. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But that's how we know each other. Right. Let's talk about you and your artistry and your music first of all. So can you just start by telling me about you a bit as an artist and what do you think makes you a bit different, or what sets you apart from other artists in the indie pop space?
Good question. I think my unique thing has always been the way that I play guitar. I think I play that in a sort of a weird way. I play an acoustic guitar like an electric guitar, and I think that's always been my thing. I suppose that makes me a bit different. I think lots of people play guitar, but not in the way that I do, or not necessarily would class themselves as a guitarist. So I think that's my thing. I do kind of indie pop music, and I'd always describe people like, what's indie pop? I say it's pop, but with guitar. And they go like, oh, like acoustic. I'm like, well, not really. But it's kind of a mix, but I also do like my solo thing a lot as well, like the sort of sad songs that I write on my own. I still do a bit of that. So yeah, kind of both.
So you learn guitar, what I call properly, right?
Thank
From a young age. So, did you learn traditional, like classical guitar?
Yeah, I did
first
classical.
of all?
I did all the grades in classical guitar.
Right. So, you learn like actual music theory and stuff, which for a modern musician is not the normal thing anymore. And when you say you play guitar properly, for me, that distinction as a popular musician is between 99% of particularly female, like singer, songwriter, artists that you see online who sing and they sort of tickle the guitar a bit, but they needn't really bother. Versus you, when you play guitar, you strum it like an electric and you really get stuck into it and you project it as an instrument. That to me is a big difference in terms of your style versus lots of other singer, songwriter style artists.
Yeah, I agree. I think I feel like playing like the guitar is like another outlet of expression and performance in my performance, rather than like I'm just playing it to accompany my singing. Like it's more like another voice. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So how do you try and maintain some authenticity in your music? Do you think about ways in which you can try and keep yourself different or separate to other artists, or do you just write and what comes out? Is there any conscious process in there?
I just try and do what I want these days. I think because I started so young, like there was a lot of time when I first started out and I spoke to a lot of different people, lots of managers, lots of people that wanted to be on board. And at the time, like guitar wasn't very cool. And I got told by absolutely everyone, like, put the guitar down, you need to do dance, you need to move more, you need to learn how to perform without a guitar. And I had that for years and years and years. And now that guitar's cool again, everyone's like, oh, it's so amazing that you play the guitar. Like, that's so cool. And I'm like, well, there you go. Like, I should have just stuck to what I was doing the whole time and waited for my time for when that was like the trend, when that was in fashion. I think lots of people were like, oh, you're doing so well at the moment. Like, you're this new artist. I'm like, no, it's been going a long time. I just think now is the time for like girls that do music that I do. So it's like doing well. But I don't think I've actually changed anything. I've just been doing the same thing for the whole time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Trying to, I guess, have faith in your own artistry and believe in what it is that you do, because the vast majority of people that are pursuing a career as a musician don't get to a point where they can live off it. Most people end up making music that ends up mostly being for themselves. So if you never get to a point where you're able to live off of your music, wouldn't it be sad if you've been constantly trying to make music that pleases other people rather than music that brings you joy?
Absolutely. I started making music because it was like the thing that came to me, as intense as that sounds. And then I enjoyed doing it. But yeah, I wouldn't have enjoyed it if it wasn't me and the way I want to do it. I've always just kind of done me in terms of like branding and like the way I dress and everything. I'm just people are like, oh, who does all your styling and social media? I'm like, I literally just wear what I would have worn anyway and just wear it on the stage. I feel like I've always just, because I don't really have a visually creative eye in that way, I've just always gone, I'm just going to be me across everything and do what I would have done anyway, and hope that that sort of comes together and looks like a cohesive brand.
You sound like you're underplaying it a bit there. You do work hard on the social media stuff, though. You're very present. You're conscious about making content consistently. It's not that you don't have a plan with that. It's just that you approach it quite naturally, or that's my external perception.
I know there's more I could be doing in certain things and more I should be doing. And like sometimes I give it a go if it's like a trend or whatever. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. But generally, I think I put myself under a lot of pressure for a long time to do like trends and to follow things and to do things other people were doing. And then I realized actually for me personally, and in terms of interaction as well, it does better when I just make things that I was going to make anyway and just try and be creative in the way that I was going to be. And hopefully people like that.
Yeah. So a strong message of backing yourself and having faith in what it is that you're trying to pursue, and not necessarily listening too much to outside noise. There's a time and a place for listening to people that are trying to give you advice, and obviously other times for saying, no, I believe in what I'm trying to do and, going to back myself. So let's talk a bit about what you write your songs about. Is there do you take specific inspiration from certain subject matters, or do you try and write about a broad range of things? How do you approach your songwriting?
I'd say sort of 95% of everything I've written is about stuff that's either happened to me or happened to somebody close to me, where I sort of feel like I know about it because I experienced it through them. I struggle to write things that don't come from inside of me, because I feel like when I have to perform, a lot of the way that I perform, like I grew up doing musical theatre, I feel like acting through song is like a big thing for me. So I kind of do act through song when I do my own stuff, and I feel like if you're going to really connect to an audience, for me, in the way that I do it, I need to actually know the intention behind what I'm singing. I need to feel it, and I thought that's the way that I can deliver it. It needs to mean something to me. Obviously not everybody does that. For me personally, I need to write about stuff that happened, or I understand, or I can picture somebody in my mind when I'm playing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, but I know that a lot of songwriters can struggle with that personal connection with songs. Lots of writers, particularly when they're younger, like I know lots of your peers when you're at the BRIT School, and sort of learning to develop your songwriting craft, struggle to invest themselves in the song because it felt too personal. They almost didn't want to tell those stories. How do you overcome that? I don't know if that's ever been a problem for you, but how would you advise people to try and overcome that in order to bring a genuine connection to your songs?
I think the thing for me is because I started songwriting not to be a singer-songwriter just because I needed something to be vulnerable. I needed an outlet. Like I had a lot of stuff sort of going on at home and things, and I never sort of told anyone or did anything about it. But I had songwriting, that was my way of being vulnerable, and I could put things into a song, and no one would really ask me about it if I put it in a song, and I still feel like I told people or shared by putting it into that song. So it was sort of working as therapy for me in that way. So I haven't really ever been like, oh, I must be vulnerable, because that's literally why I started. But I think I go into schools and I do a school tour. And when I do that, I normally tell people, if you've tried journaling, try songwriting. If you've got things that you want to get out, don't think about who's going to listen to it. Just think about if you're just doing it for yourself. And then if you want to share it afterwards, you can. But you should try and express yourself and use it as your outlet for things that you're feeling that you perhaps don't want to say to someone, but you wouldn't want to be said. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably a lot cheaper than a therapist too, right?
Yes.
There's that as well. I love that, going in and doing stuff with schools and with kids and stuff. And you've been on CBBC a number of times as well. Is that a real conscious thing that you want to keep doing, going and doing stuff with kids, or is that just something that happens to have happened in your journey?
Yeah, it happened to have happened really, but I've always been aware that I wanted to be an artist that someone's mum would support them liking. I've never sworn online. That's something I've always I've never sworn on my Instagram ever. I've always been very careful of that. I generally filter everything I post, and I've always been like that because I don't want anyone's parents to be like, oh, don't listen to her, she's a bad influence. I want to be a good influence. That's always been a thing. I think because I've had this sort of clean thing, that's how I've ended up on things like CBBC, because there's nothing to sort of say no. But yeah, since doing the school tour, it's actually it's as much for me as I think it is. I'm doing it as much for me as I think I'm doing it for them. I enjoy inspiring, and I enjoy the messages I get after people saying I had this idea of something, but I never wanted to do it until I saw you and I want to be like you. I'm like, okay, that's so amazing. Because it only takes one person. For me, it was Taylor Swift. Like I saw her and I was like, I want to do that. So everyone just needs one person to sort of show them that they can do something. But also I think for me now, it's definitely my grounding. I think when you spend a lot of time with creative people and like egos and stuff, you can get a little bit like loopy. So I think it's really good for me to go into school and to like be in the heart of like normality every sort of 2 weeks and be like, okay, so this is normal. And it also helps me feel like I can see where I've come from as well. When you're always hanging around with people that are achieving loads of things, you can kind of feel like you've done nothing. But then when you go into a school, I'm like, oh, well, I went to school and I remember what I was like at school. So I can really see my own journey and my own growth. Like when I was in school, I probably couldn't even like, I don't know, put my hand up in assembly, and now I'm standing in this assembly and talking to all these kids. So I think there's lots of reasons why I do it, but I do really enjoy it.
Yeah. And it's really important for all sorts of people, whether it's children or teenagers or adults or whoever. It's important to have all sorts of role models. So if you look at Taylor Swift, for example, who I know you're a fan of, and I'm a fan of, perhaps in different ways. I know we both have recently seen her on her Eras tour.
Yeah.
You went to Wembley. I saw her at the
Very much so.
Bernabeu in Madrid. And like, she's incredible, amazing. Like, what an artist, so professional, so much stamina, amazing. A girl who plays guitar, by the way, just to say that. But that's not necessarily the most useful of role models for lots of people, because she's so unattainable. You know,
Yes.
the amount of people that can get to that level of success are, you know, there might not ever be another one ever. You know, she's bigger than probably any other female artist there's ever been. So it's not a realistic goal. But someone like yourself who's, you know, making a really good start at your music career, but, you know, you're by no means at Taylor Swift level, is perhaps a more tangible journey for people to see.
Yeah, I think there's another sort of bit that I put in my talk where I always get asked in every school how much money I make. Like every kid seems to want to know the answer to this question. Every school I go into, they all ask. And I think it just comes from them under the impression that you can't make money from music. And I think that's why they ask, because they're trying to either catch me out or they're just curious. So I always sort of answer with the same thing. I feel like if you're somebody that's a go-getter and you're happy to like go and work for things, you can make money from music. But if you're someone that wants to sit and wait for things to come to you, or every day to be delegated a task or told what to do, it's probably not the career for you. I think if you put it in that way and sort of speak about it like a job, then I think people see it as something they can probably achieve, rather than this mystical, like, oh, I'm an artist. Like, I just sort of say, like, it's a job. And if you want to work hard at it, you can make money and do it. And then you can be an artist too.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I know that, you know, all of the, you know, the modern, I guess, like middle tier musicians that aren't like real mainstream all have to have diverse portfolios of income. Like if I look at myself, I have a recording studio. I have artists and bands that come here to record with me, to have me produce records. Then I have my education content online, and I teach online to people all around the world who want lessons from me. I wrote a book that is about music production, and, you know, people buy that book from time to time. I write my own music. I'm writing with artists all over the place and releasing my own music. So I have a number of different income streams that give me money at different times. If I just had one of those things, probably I wouldn't be able to afford to live. And I guess you're similar in that you have a number of different ways of earning money, not just going and playing shows and waiting for royalties to come in from your records, because that probably, where you are at the moment, probably wouldn't be enough to live off. Exactly.
Yeah, you do need to have a lot of fingers and lots of pies, and juggle a lot of different things. I also do like dance music stuff, and that's been quite good. I don't know how I kind of fell into that randomly. I recorded a vocal when I was like 14, and it got sent to someone who got sent to someone who got sent to someone, and then like 5 years later I got an email that was like, oh, it's coming out on this massive label with this massive artist, this label, this vocal from when you were 15. I was like, oh, okay. So that came out, and then it did well, and then the guy whose song it was, Grum, he came to me and was like, oh, I really like that vocal you did, like I've got a few more. So I did like loads for him, and I've done like 8, and that loads of other ones are coming through there. So I sort of just stumbled into that. I didn't go and look for it, but I think because that opportunity came and it was something I've never listened to EDM before, I was just like, oh, well, a new thing. And I think you just have to say yes to opportunities. You just have to try things out, and you could be good at them. They could just become like another income stream. They just could be another thing that you do, even if, like, I don't know, give it a go. Just say yes to stuff. Why not?
Yeah. And do you think that that's a problem for you as a cohesive artist? Because, you know, you're doing these top lines on EDM songs, but then your personal music, if you like, as Natalie Shay, not as a feature, is quite different to that. So, when people look you up on Spotify or whatever DSP they want to use, is that confusing for people? Because I know, like, when I go to my Spotify profile, I write with all sorts of different artists, and I love the fact that my portfolio is really diverse, but it's not cohesive as such. And people don't go, oh, he's a metal artist, that's what he does. They go, oh, he's written a metal record, or hang on a minute, this one's pop punk, or this one's like more rock. So is that a problem? Do you need cohesion, or is it, just do what you want?
It goes in waves. Like if I've just released something, it's all the popular stuff is my stuff, and I feel like that's when it makes the most sense. And then when I haven't released in a while, obviously those songs are getting like consistently lots of streams. So when my stuff's like not new and everyone's going there, then they reshuffle in the popularity. It's been a problem sometimes. Like I've had sort of people in the past that would be like, oh, you need to sort that out, or like get it relabeled, and it's like doesn't make sense. But I just kind of think like, why? Like, I don't know. I think it's fine. I still wrote it, and it's not like I don't write those songs thinking in my head like, oh, I need to write this project. I'm just writing stuff I would have written anyway, but over EDM music. So I'm still really proud of the top lines and still think that they're very me. I know they're like a little bit strange when you sort of see me live and then you go and look at my Spotify and it's like nothing like you just saw. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It comes and goes, but the whole goal in general is to get my own stuff to be streamed consistently as much as the EDM stuff, and then it will always be priority in the right order on my profile.
So let's talk about your journey to this point so far. You started playing guitar at the age of 5, I believe, and now you're playing at major festivals, South by Southwest and Latitude, and millions of streams on your Spotify profile and stuff. So it's a long journey, 20 years. Are there any moments that you reflect upon and you think that was a real key moment, or that was a really pivotal moment? Any landmark changes or events?
Because I started the artist thing at so I think I started like posting originals and stuff when I was like 11 or 12 on this website called Line Booth, which is now shut down. And it was like a sort of music sharing website. And me and my friend from around here, it was me and her at our theatre school, and we were both wanted to be Taylor Swift, and we were both single children, and we were both a little bit competitive. And we had this sort of like rivalry, but we were still friends, and we were doing this together for ages and ages, and we were both posting on Line Booth all the time. And as it turns out now, like she's still a writer producer, and we do a lot of stuff together now. So I always tell the story, it's beautiful friendship. But yeah, so it was just us two, and we were doing this. And I think I'd never sort of played any of this stuff live until I was 13. So 2012, I entered this competition called Gigs Big Busk, which was during the Olympics. They set up loads of stages around London, and you'd get people to go and play in all these stages, and you'd be busking for votes rather than money. And then people would vote, and then there would be a final that was held at Westfield, and then compete into like the judges, and then there'd be a winner. So I won that in 2012 when I was 13. That was the first thing I ever did. I'd never done anything before. So I think stuff like that was so special, especially at that age, like to have that sort of confidence boost, and also just because I did come through like a weird sort of childhood, and I think if I didn't have something like that pull me out of it, I quite easily probably could have just slipped away and slipped under, like, I don't know if I ever would have found any confidence or anything to do with my life. So I'm glad that happened. So that was a big one. And then I think the next thing, I entered loads of competitions around that time. So I had lots of people sort of give me that external validation that it was worth pursuing, which was really important. At that age, it was really important. I just needed professionals to tell me it was worth it. And then obviously I applied to BRIT. I remember that day. I remember opening the letter, like me and my dad were walking up the road. Like the postman was coming, and I was like, is there any for me? Is there any for me? And we like took it from the postman and like opened it in the street. And I remember like how amazing that felt. But I was really scared to go there. I was really scared to leave my school. I don't do well with change. I think for the first like 2 months, I didn't really speak to anyone. Like I just kept texting my dad, like, I want to leave. Like I don't do well with change. I don't do well with new things. So I remember all of that, like, those sort of 3 years, I remember them like as if they were yesterday. And then the rest of it's kind of a blur. After that, I was just like playing lots of gigs all the time, and I remember like bits of it, but I know that those sort of two years at the start, I remember all of the competitions I won as if they were yesterday. I remember getting into BRIT. I remember starting BRIT. I remember like the first song I released when I was at BRIT. I think it was in year 10 or 11. I just put this song out that this woman had recorded for free as a favor, because she was like, someone recorded a song for me when I was your age, so I'm going to do it for you. I was like, okay. And I put this song out. I took the artwork like in my garden, and I released it. And lots of people from BRIT made a video for me and all these things. And like no one in our year had really released a song, so it was a bit weird. And then it did well, and I got into like the iTunes chart. I was like number 15 when I was in class, and I was like, this is amazing. Like this is what I imagined BRIT School would be. Like it's so cool. And it was weird because I think at that age as well, like even though we were at BRIT, obviously now I think back, it obviously was jealousy, but like people were weird about it. Like people would sort of not make fun, but like make comments about the fact that I'd released a song and that I'd done well with it. And I remember thinking at the time, like, okay, so this is going to be something like, if you actually want to do music, like there's going to be lots of people that just sort of make fun along the way. Yeah, I guess it kind of balances out later in life. But I think I remember all of those feelings at that time and how I sort of felt like, if I really want to do this, I have to just like ignore everyone and listen to the people that say it's good and everything. But yeah, there.
Yeah, I mean, kids can be really nasty to each other, can't they?
Yeah.
As you say, I'm sure at that particular, well, not even at that particular moment in life, because I still see it now with adult artists that I work with. But you know, when you're teenagers, if you're all seeking a career in the same thing, you're not broad-minded enough yet to understand that just because someone else is doing well doesn't mean that you won't also do well.
Absolutely.
You can all enjoy each other's successes, and that's great, because the world is a big place and there is space for a lot of people. But yeah, you know, it's normal, I think, for kids of that age, if they see one of their peers doing something that they really want to be doing, to feel jealous and
Absolutely.
to not be capable of being happy for that person too.
I talk about that in my school tour. I do a little bit about like, because most of the comments and messages and people say like, oh, I want to do music, but I'm scared because like either somebody made fun of me or I'm scared that somebody will make fun of me. And I'm always like, somebody absolutely definitely will make fun of you. Like they always knock the person for trying. And then I explain to them, it's not about you not being good. It's usually one of two things: that either see you doing a thing that makes you happy and they're like, well, I haven't got a thing that makes me happy and I don't know how to process that feeling, so I'm going to put you down. Or it's because they want to do the thing you're doing. Because literally, I'd say 90% of the people that ever made comments about me or anything, they all tried music at like 19. And I was like, oh, that's why. That's why you made fun of 14-year-old me for doing it, because you wanted to do it and you weren't confident enough. So it's usually always a them thing. You have to just not, you have to remember it's a them thing. It's not a you thing, and that it's not that you're bad or that you're worth making fun of. It's actually about them.
Yeah. Which is the way it is when you're younger. And then when you get a bit older, certainly to my age, what am I now? 37, you're 25. So I don't know whether it's quite hit you yet, but certainly when you get to my age, so many adults are so bothered about what everybody else thinks about their lifestyle and what they're doing. You know, that's why people have midlife crises and spend money that they can't afford on a sports car and all that sort of stuff, rather than thinking about what they actually want. You know, people worry so much about other people's perceptions when actually, by the time you get to adulthood, people don't care. Like people are so busy trying to deal with their own crap that they're not bothered about somebody else's. So it does get to a point where actually you should just be able to not worry about anybody else's perceptions, because they're not bothered ultimately.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So let's talk a bit more about BRIT School. So obviously, changing schools at 14. So in the UK, it's like after year 9, going into year 10. So when you do your GCSEs, that's a massive time in your life to be changing schools. Like your GCSEs in the UK is like the first important set of public examinations. It denotes where you can or can't apply to college. If you're looking to go into college, it's a big deal. So to decide to, at that point, junction towards like a solid career route, to say I want to pursue music more seriously whilst I'm still doing my GCSEs is massive. How do you think that decision shaped your resilience personally? You know, you've told me that it was difficult and you hated it to begin with, but do you think that ended up being a positive thing for you, regardless of the fact that you were going to BRIT School? Did that change impact you positively as a person?
Yeah, I was still like, wouldn't even go into a coffee shop and ask for a coffee at that age. Like I was so shy. Like every time anyone would speak to me at a gig or anything, I'd always like look at my dad and let him speak for me. Like I had no confidence or like self-belief or anything. I guess that came from like things growing up. And I think like I applied to BRIT because I had a singing teacher that came in for like 2 sessions into my like local theatre school, and she was like a Perry teacher at BRIT, and she was like, oh, you want to be a singer? You should apply to the BRIT School. I was like, what's that? She was like, oh, it's a school where like whatever. And obviously I was doing it kind of seriously, and my dad's always been really, really supportive, and he was like, yeah, you got to go and do it. He's like, if you're serious about it, you got to go and do it. I was like, okay, I got to go and do it. But my mum wasn't. Like I'm half Greek Cypriot, and I don't think that like music career is a very Greek Cypriot thing to do, and I don't think my mum quite came around to like the possibilities of being a woman in London until like the last sort of 4 years. So I think at that time she was like, no, like you're really academic, like why would you leave your academic school and go to this school, like, why are you doing that? And it sort of caused a lot of problems. She didn't speak to me for quite a while. She didn't speak to my dad for quite a while. So it was like a big upheaval of my life. So it was a really weird, random like change to make. But I think what ultimately pushed me to apply was I knew I'd get a lot of attention at my old school if I was leaving. Like, everyone's going to make such a fuss of me, and I'm going to be like the celebrity if I leave and go to the BRIT School. So that was kind of ultimately what pushed me into doing it, even though I had all the like resistance on the other side. But yeah, when I got there, I was still really, really shy. I missed my old school a lot because I had a lot of friends, and I think I'd met a lot of people at BRIT when I got there. They were telling me how they'd been bullied in their old school and how they hated their old school. And I was thinking, like, it wasn't like that for me. Like, I had loads of friends and I had a really nice time there. So I was like, I'm different to these people. Like, I'm never going to make friends here. And yeah, I think I didn't help myself too much. I used to hide in the toilet a lot for the first bit. But ultimately, when people ask me, how was the BRIT School for you? I normally say, like, I feel like music-wise, it gave me the space to develop, but I don't think it really, like that's not what made me develop. I think what it actually did was, A, give me the confidence to do this as a career and teach me things I needed to know so that I could make it a full-time thing. And secondly, it just made me an actual person, like, rather than this like child that was really, really shy. And since then, my dad has said, like, he was really worried for me at the time. He was like, you're really talented, but I was always really worried that just the fact that you were so shy was going to be the problem that would stop you from doing anything. And he's like, so I'm so glad that you went to that school and you learned confidence and you learned how to sort of own yourself, I guess, being treated like an adult and having your career prospects respected at 14 years old is this like mad thing. Because in my old school, they just really didn't. Like, I remember I went for like careers day to pick our GCSE results, and I'd already got into that school on music, so I was there as like one of 20 music students, like out of catchment. I'd already done that. And I remember, like, we sat with this woman and I was like, I want to do music. And like, to me and my dad, she was like, well, no, because like you're really academic across all these subjects, and like you won't get into Oxford and Cambridge if you don't do like history and geography. So like music you can just do like after school. And I remember my dad being like, no. He just like slammed his hand on the desk. He was like, no. And I was like, okay. So thinking about, like, it was a mad change, but I'm so happy I did it, because I just probably wouldn't have ever done music, because I'm not like in a musical family. I'm like, nobody in my family has ever done anything performing or creative or anything like this. So yeah.
Well, good on your dad for being so supportive and,
yeah.
and pushing you. That's, lots of people don't have a parent like that
No.
who is, so understanding of something, a talent that you have. So well done, Dad.
Yeah, no, I'm so pleased. You have to encourage and nurture your children's dreams. You have to.
Exactly. I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said, because the Brits, there are a couple of things that I think the BRIT School is really good for, but also some misconceptions about it as well publicly. So the BRIT School is one of the most accepting places that I've ever been. It really doesn't care who you are. And I mean that in the best possible way. Like, you could have crazy mental health problems, anxiety, depression, whatever. You could be trans, you could be gay, lesbian, bi, you can be literally anything that you want. And the BRIT School and the students generally that go to the BRIT School aren't bothered, because it's just an accepting place. And I think that's amazing. And particularly for a place that is so attractive to creative people, who are often people that use creativity as an outlet for their expression, not dissimilar to yourself. It's amazing that there is an environment like that for people to go and be, generally speaking, accepted. Now, I'm sure there are issues of, bullying and personality clashes and everything else, like there are in every school. But generally speaking, I think it's a really wonderful place in that sense. But a great public misconception is that it's this school where people go and they get trained to be an artist or an actor, yeah, sort of, that's what it is. But it's a school like any other school that has to provide a course, that has to follow a curriculum and offer an education. So the fact that so many really famous alumni have come out of it, Adele, Amy Winehouse, Jessie J, blah, 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 lots of names. It happens to be a byproduct, I think, of the sort of creative hub that it is, but it doesn't train people to go and have, be a successful artist. You'll know that you had to do lessons in music theory and music industry and songwriting and music technology and different bits of performance stuff. But it's not like this is how you go and have a career in the music industry. It's more, here are lots of different things and skills and things that you need to acquire. But if you want a career, you've got to go and make it for yourself. The school doesn't give you anything on a plate. And I guess that's what you were referring to a bit, where you're like, that, you know, that school didn't make me as a musician, but it did give me an opportunity to develop in that direction.
Absolutely, yeah. I think lots of people ask me the same thing. They're like, "Oh, you went to BRIT, and what do they like teach you to be a musician?" I'm like, "No, I didn't learn a single music at BRIT. I learned all my music outside of school. I didn't learn any music there. I just did the music that I already knew." And I think, yeah, I think it's a mix of what you said about the fact it's a hub. I think like the sort of, I think because it's like loads of 14-year-olds that have picked a career, which you don't really find. And I think when you've got that, it's like, okay, so you've got all these people that are like serious. So I think when you've got loads of serious people, they're not competitive, but like, you know, you're like, okay, well, they're serious, I'm serious too. And it creates this like drive and this work ethic. And I think that continues into life. And I think lots of people often don't find that maybe until university or their first job, when they're like around people that are like them, like being around people like you at 14. It's really useful. So that, yeah, it wasn't about learning music. It was about having the space to try things I wanted to do, and also like try things that I never tried again, and just like random stuff. And I guess most of all, just being treated like an adult and having your dreams viewed as like a serious thing, rather than this like, oh yeah, but like, that's cute that you do music. Like it was seen as like, okay, so you want to be an artist, okay. Like it's when you get that sort of, you're in an environment where you're treated like a professional before you're even a professional, it's so useful. I think, yeah, it's a mix of all of these things, but not about training you up. It's not like a drama school where like they invite agents and they're like, oh, sign up our latest like trained up thing. Like it's not about that at all. They just sort of give you a space to exist. But I think if you are a young 14 or 16-year-old that is serious about something in the arts, it's better to be in a space with people like that, because I don't know, I didn't actually go to normal school for that long, but I think if you stay in a normal school, it might sort of, you might get too faced with reality or too caught up in the like they'd always stick me in like these assemblies for like gifted and talented students to go to Oxford and Cambridge, and I was always being forced into this like thing. Like I'd never ever expressed an interest in ever wanting to go to uni, but I was like being forced into these lanes and like in the system and stuff. And I think breaking out of that is so important if you're actually serious, like, or otherwise you just might just get swept up and people please your way into going to Oxford or something.
And unfortunately, schools are like that now. Schools are basically just run like giant spreadsheets. And I say it from experience, because I taught in a number of normal schools before I taught at the BRIT School. And you know, ultimately, it's all about bottom lines. It's how many A star to C's, or whatever it is, five to nines, or 4 to 9s. It is these days. And it's, you know, how many students have been expelled or suspended, and it's, you know, it's just a load of statistics, and it just completely depersonalizes the whole experience from both sides. From a student perspective, when you're in some of the most formative years of your life, to just really be perceived as ultimately a number on a spreadsheet, and also from a teaching perspective, when the vast majority of people that are in the teaching profession are in it because they really love teaching. So much of their thought process is taken away by the non-creative part of teaching, which should be trying to learn the young kids and trying to help them, you know, really understand subjects. It all just becomes about numbers, and that's really difficult. And I left school in 2005. I went to a grammar school in Colchester, and it was all about grades, and Oxbridge entrance. And I remember on my A-level results day, I went and got my results from school, and I got 2 A's and 2 B's at A-level, which was the days before they were A stars. You know, so 2 A's was like really good.
Woo.
And my head of year was like, oh, well, you brought the average down then. And I was like, oh, what's the average? Oh, 5 A's. You know, so most people in my year got 5 A's, and I got 2 A's and 2 B's, which is great because I didn't do any work. Like, I never did any work, so it was a miracle. And all he was bothered about was, you know, the bottom line, not about the fact that for me that was like a miracle, quite frankly. And you know, that's education at the moment. Unfortunately, it's really hard in schools, and you know, even the BRIT School is affected massively by that. With government funding cuts and stuff, it is a government funded school, although it does get additional funding from other sectors. You know, it's a state school, it's a free school, it's not a private school. You know, and that sort of stuff affects all schools. Anyway, let's move on from schools and let's get back to your journey a bit more. Can you tell me about any mistakes that you've made on your musical path? Are there any events that you're like, I wish I hadn't done that, or I should have done that differently?
I don't regret anything I've done, but there's a lot of things I didn't do because of my shyness, and I regret those every day. So there was a lot of a Brit, to be fair. Like, you'd have to sort of apply for things, and I'd apply for things, but I'd be so shy, or I'd like not really express how much I actually wanted to do something. I feel like I never actually got accepted to a single thing that I applied to at Brit. I think because I was just sort of shy about it, and I think people think I didn't care, but I did care. I was just scared, and there was a lot of that, a lot of competitions when I was younger that I didn't enter because I was shy, or like managers that would speak to me and I didn't speak to them well enough because I was shy, or I didn't take things further because I was shy. And I think I regret a lot of things I didn't do. And because of that, in the last few years, I'm just like, I will say yes to everything and didn't do everything because I can't, like, worst comes, it was just like a wasted day. Like, it can't be that bad. I haven't had anything that was like a big fat mistake. Like I've signed deals and worked with people that perhaps didn't work out, but like I still feel like the time that they were there, they served me well and it brought me to the next level. Like, I didn't stay with them too long. Like, they were perhaps weren't the best, but I didn't stay with them too long. I had a lot of close shaves with a lot of like managers and stuff when I was younger, but before I really knew anything and before my dad really knew anything, like dodgy contracts, like I didn't know were necessarily dodgy, but luckily we sort of didn't sign them. So I had a few close shaves with people that could have kind of ruined everything and taken all my money forever. I have to say that was good. But yeah, no massive regrets, but definitely regrets of having not put myself out a bit more in situations, especially when I was like more shy.
So that's a great thing for us to talk about, is scammy managers and scammy people in the industry trying to take advantage. So what sorts of things, like clauses in contracts, or what were the sorts of things that people were trying to do to take advantage of you as a young artist?
Yeah, I remember I got this management contract for this guy that we met a few times, and it was like 5 years on 50%, and then after that it was like 10 years on 20% afterwards, or something crazy. That like if you've never done anything and you like not from a musical family, you have no idea, like you just be like, oh, management, like that's normal, like you wouldn't know. So like I think my dad was just like, oh, it seems a bit fishy, like let's not. But like obviously now I know that's not standard, that's weird, but I think there's so many of these companies and they would always approach me. And like as I've gotten older, I talk to people that started young as well, and they're like, oh yeah, they approached me when I was like 17. They're out to just catch people. They find talented people that they think will do well, and they sign them up. They don't do anything for them because they're waiting for that sunset clause so that they can make money off of them when they actually do well with somebody later on. And it's just, yeah, it's really mean. It's really horrible. What a nasty thing to do to young children that will have a dream. That's really horrible.
Unfortunately, the world is full of mean, nasty people
Yeah.
trying to take advantage of people. There are so many scammy people in the world that are lacking in any sort of moral decorum, as my dad would say. So yeah, you've got to be really, really careful. Do you have a manager now?
I do. I have two managers, two women that came to me separately, both independent, and I was like, well, I kind of like both of you, so I can't pick. So I sort of like spoke to both of them for a while without telling the other that I was talking to two of them for a while, and it got to a point where I was like, right, I really need to make a decision here of like who's going to be the one. And then I sort of said to them, like, you're quite similar, you've had similar backgrounds, maybe go and hang out. If you get on, then I'm proposing, because I like heard that someone somewhere had done this like joint management contract once, and I was like, I think this is a thing, like I don't know if you'd be up for it, meet and see if you want to. And they did meet, and now they're like bestest friends. They go on holiday together, and I always take credit for it, so it's definitely I set that up. And now so then they manage me as this sort of two independents managing me, but now they manage like loads of people in that same way. So I definitely started all of that, and I take credit for it and I remind them all the time. But yeah, they're great. They're really lovely. I've never had management that worked really well until this, so this is good.
That's cool. So what do they do for you? Like, for people that know that management is a thing, but they don't necessarily know what a manager's job is, what do they bring to your party?
Yeah, I think lots of people think that a manager will make you famous or like do things for you, and I think sometimes they can, but I think those managers more want to sign someone that's like a clean slate rather than someone that's had like 10 years of releases already. Like, I think I'm not that kind of artist. So what I think when people say to me like, oh, I can't get a manager, because I didn't have a manager for ages. Everyone had one out of BRIT, and I was like, oh, it's never going to happen for me because I didn't get one. I realise now you need to have something to manage, or what are they going to do all day? Like, they actually have to have something for them to do. Like, I delegate them tasks. I say like, can you do this for me? Can you handle this for me? So there's a lot of admin that they deal with. I guess they're the people that generally try and bring in deals and meetings and stuff. Like, that's their thing, because they have, like, one of them was in like Universal Publishing for like 20 years, and one of them was in like Warner Marketing for 20 years. So they've got like two sort of major label but separate, one's publishing, one's label, and they've got contacts. So they bring people in that way. They start the conversations, they handle my conversations. If something goes wrong, they handle it. day to day, I guess, like we're planning to release at the moment, so it's like all the jobs every day. I'm like, oh, who's going to do this? And we just sort of figure out who's doing what and who's speaking to who and what conversations. And I'm going to Nashville like in a week. I've never done that before. And I was like, I'm going to Nashville. Like, I need to have stuff to do there. So their job was to like find me sessions and shows and like there's stuff like that. Like, there needs to be something to do. You can't just sort of be like, I'm an artist. I need a manager. Like, make me famous. Like, you actually have to have stuff for them to work with. You have to be making the records or have an idea of what you're doing. You can't just expect somebody to carry you through because like what would be the benefit? Like, it's a team effort, team thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so the management is an extension of you, right? As you say, if you don't have a vision and a plan and a direction, they've got nothing to work with. They've got no work to do. You've got to bring ambition to that relationship in order for them to be able to support you with it. You need stuff to delegate to them and say, can you do this because I'm busy doing this other stuff, and they'll earn their money from you in that kind of way, I guess. Talk to me as well about the learning curve that you went through in terms of understanding how the music industry works, because people that are inside the music industry from all different aspects, whether they're managers or whether they're royalty societies or whether they're record labels or publishers, like trying to get transparent information from an outsider about how things work and how these companies work is so difficult. Like, they make it so difficult to understand. So how did you obtain like a functional knowledge of how the music industry actually works?
I think I learned a lot of it at BRIT, to be fair. Didn't know any of that stuff till I went there. So yeah, I learned a lot there. That was something I always think about. I didn't make any notes the whole time I was there, but I do remember things. And and what else? I guess because I started young, people did approach me. So I'd be approached by like PR agency and I'd be like, what's PR agency? I don't know. So like I had bits of it growing up where I was aware of different things and I'd learn about it in school. So I kind of had a rough idea of things, but I didn't really know like what you actually needed at what level and who, like, and where. So that sort of came later. And I think everything I've learned now and the fact that like I can do independent releasing like so confidently and I feel like I know what I'm doing now. It's just through releasing a lot. Every time I release, like someone might approach me and I might work with them and then it might be a waste of money. Like, okay, I won't work with them again, or certain things might work in different ways. I think all of it's just kind of come through either people approaching me or trial and error. But like you said, like other than what I learned in school, no one's really taught me. You just have to sort of put it. And also when people talk about stuff, you have to assume you know what they're talking about, even if you don't. So like, so someone will be like, oh yeah, my blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to let you talk and try and figure out what that is. And then I'm going to like ask somebody later on like what that was. So it's a bit of a game. All of it is a game, but it's just fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun. And the thing is that even the same service providers, record labels will work in different ways. So if you go to an independent label, they'll probably do things completely different to how a major label would. And me having moved to Spain 3 years ago, I understood reasonably well the music industry in the UK. And then I come to Spain and the legal structures and the way that people work here is very different and way less professional than the UK. And it's like, right, like in the UK, like most artists have at least like some base understanding of some aspects of stuff. Even if they're amateur artists just playing pubs and clubs for fun. Here, the same level of like amateur artists know nothing,
right?
Like nothing. And like the main royalties agency, which is called SGAE, which is like the PRS of the UK, like has the worst reputation. Like everybody thinks they're like spawn of the devil, and like no one registers their songs because they think that SGAE is going to do something crazy with them. I don't know. Like it's mental. So you have to try and understand the ecosystem that you're within in order. Like me as a producer working with artists, and owning bits of different songs, I've got to understand how I keep those safe and how I make sure that I get what's owed to me from all of those things. You've got to. You can't just bury your head in the sand and expect things to turn out well because they won't. Like someone will take advantage of you. Someone will nick your percentage of something because people aren't nice. They're not out to help you. They're out to help themselves. If they can help you whilst helping themselves, then they'll do that. But generally speaking, people put themselves first all the time.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? How like you have to sort of learn all this stuff.
It's not the same as being a doctor or a lawyer where you can you know, a lot of it you can learn out of a book because it's theory and it's laws and it's the same. Like, you kind of just have to get into that ecosystem and learn as you do. You can't really learn it all out of a book. Some you can, but a lot you've just got to experience. You've got to be cautious and you've got to ask lots of questions. And as you say, when you hear about stuff that is new to you that you don't know, just nod and smile, take a mental note, and then go and ask about it later on.
Yeah, I always make like a little note. I'll be like, oh, who was that? Oh, okay. And I'll like write it down. And I always revisit it because I think you need to like, you have to always be on the lookout to learn more. And also stuff is changing and like things that are important are changing as well. Like TikTok was never a thing when I started doing this. Like Spotify wasn't a thing when I released my first song. Like none of this was a thing. There's all stuff I've had to learn. Like I wasn't, so it's always changing. There's always new stuff and it's never going to be the same. So you do have to like always keep one ear to the ground and into like the what's the buzz, what's going on.
When I first released a song, Facebook was barely even a thing. It was MySpace.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my band when I was at uni, we were like MySpace era, which is
nice. That's cool.
You know, that was a long time ago. Like 2005 to 2008, I was at uni. So
wow.
Yeah, there you go. Like I've lived through the whole development of digital streaming. What a time to be alive.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah. In a way it is to see that whole development is amazing. Right. Lastly, before we wrap up, tell me what is forthcoming for you. What's in the pipeline? What are you planning for you?
What's coming up? So I've just done an EP. And everyone's like, when's the next one? So I had to start the next one already. So I've got a single coming out soon. I'm going to Nashville, obviously, first time, playing the Bluebird, which was like always a dream because Taylor Swift got discovered there. And I knew that from when I was like 11. I also didn't know what Nashville was as a kid. I thought it was this like this building somewhere that you go to and it's like, oh, a music place. I had no idea what Nashville was, but I knew that Taylor Swift went there and she got discovered there and it's her favorite thing. So it's always been a dream for me. Go and do this, playing the Bluebirds, very special. I'm gonna get a little tattoo when I'm there, have a cowboy hat on my leg to be like, yay, Nashville. So it's gonna go well. While I'm there, a song comes out. So that'll be the first single of the next EP. Then I've got one in January, and then I've kind of just done the same thing for the last 3 years. Every year I do like one America trip, I'll do like an EP, I'll do a show, and then I'll do festivals and just every year they all grow a little bit from the last one, but it's kind of the same thing. I think it works for me. It means I get to do all the stuff I like doing, and it seems to sort of just keep me relevant and elevate things in between like songs coming out. Because like I know people expect you to release like every month, especially when you're doing an EP. They're like, oh, is the next one in like 2 months? Like, no, it's gonna be in like 4 months. Like, why do I have to churn through them so fast? I don't get the rush around it, so I really long them out. Like I'll long it out for a year or two if I have to, like a single every sort of 4 months. I don't mind. So that's what I'm sticking to. That's the structure. I don't know when and where, but that's probably next year will be the same as this year. I just hope that every year is bigger than the last, especially with festivals. I think if you play a big one, you kind of get better ones the next year. So I had a really good one this summer, and I just hope that I get something equally as cool next year.
That all sounds really exciting, and I wish you all the best of luck. I will still be following your journey as I have been to this point. So good luck with everything.
Thanks.
Natalie, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. This is the best. It's fun.